I can't remember what his name is, but he laid out all of the First Nations money going into this specific band and all of their finances and all of the rest of this stuff. And they have a lot of money, but people are living in squalor. And I couldn't help but think about the Beverly Hillbillies. I grew up watching the Beverly Hillbillies and Leave It to Beaver and the Andy Griffith Show, all of these shows. And my dad loved the Beverly Hillbillies, absolutely. And the Three Stooges. My dad thought still thinks the Three Stooges are hilarious. Regardless, the Beverly Hillbillies always struck me as Mr. Drysdale, who's the banker, right? He was taking advantage of the hillbillies. And it seems like the same thing is happening in First Nations writ large. It seems like this is a cash cow. If you get in there and these unsophisticated rubes don't understand how money works, you can show them and then give them a little bit of money and you can take the lion's share and they'll never know the difference, right? They'll think they're living the high life and really they're just country bumpkins who don't know any better, right? Water schmotter, right? We'll buy them bottled water and that'll be fine. See what I'm saying? And it seems like that kind of relationship here writ large. And so we'll talk about that in the financing area. So there's lots to get to. Let's get to it. First, let's talk, it's Trump a little bit, but he's talking about, I've been saying that the elections are rigged. Rigged as all get out. Absolutely, definitely rigged. There is no political solution because they're rigged. And further, I think that Trump has an alliance or an agreement with the military because he's running a sting operation or something to that effect. He's trying to correct a wrong that's been allowed to fester for decades. I think he's trying to fix this. I could be wrong. I fully admit that I could be wrong, but I think he's trying to fix this. But he himself ran for president and somebody unrigged the election. I don't think it was an accident that he won in 2016. They unrigged the election in key areas so that he could win. I went to bed in 2016 thinking that there's no way Trump was going to win, and I woke up and he was president, and I thought, wow, that's crazy town. And so then he lost in 2020, and I thought, I don't know what the plan is here, but it seems crazy that he lost after being able to win. And now that he's back, I think that he's part of a sting operation meant to flush these people out and remove them from power in a way that is almost silent, right? And so it's multifaceted, and I don't want to get into it, but I've been saying for years that these elections are rigged, and if they can fix it, maybe we can fix it. Maybe we've got an opportunity to fix it too. And so here's Trump talking about this. Now, he said the Epstein files are going to be released. Other things are going to be released. I'll be interested to see if the evidence that he's referencing here is actually released. I hope so. But here's Trump talking about election rigged 2020 election, and we won that by a lot, and so on and so forth. Here we go.
That's all they're good at cheating in elections. Very good at cheating. They're professionals at cheating because we won in 2016 by a lot. The election was rigged in 2020. We have all the ammunition, all the stuff, and you'll see it come out. It's coming out in truckloads. And California's election, New York also, but California more than any other place is so rigged. It's such a rigged election. You know, we won the Hispanic vote. So a lot of people say Republican wouldn't win California, but I won the Hispanic vote. I won in Miami. Think of that. In Miami, I won the Hispanic vote. Along the Texas border, I won every single city or town touching the Texas border, and they're 85 to 90% Hispanic. We won the Hispanic vote. If the vote in California was legitimate, which it's not, they have 38 million ballots. Everything is mail-in voting. They mail out 38 million ballots, and they come in. Where the hell do they go, and where do they come from? It's a rigged election in California because we would win California by a lot. And again, they feel they have the advantage with Hispanic. They don't.
So Trump's saying, he said you're going to see it come out by the truckload. So we'll see. We'll see. Wealth Moose says, this is honestly staggering. CBC host repeats Michael Ma and Chris D'Entremont's parroting liberal talking points of Pierre Poilievre's leadership gets no pushback. But the moment conservatives explain what actually happened, she cuts in with, we know your party gives people talking points. So liberals are organic concern, conservatives scripted spin. That's not journalism, that's narrative management. And yeah, Poilievre gives, in my opinion, a pretty bad interview, but I haven't seen the whole thing. I've seen this and a couple other clips, but I haven't seen the whole thing, so I'm judging it on a very, very tiny amount of exposure. But Scott says, well, he's highlighting this exchange. I think Poilievre's argument about manufacturing a majority through floor crossings in the middle of session is not the intended purpose of our Canadian system. I think Poilievre needs to come up with a better argument for why he doesn't think it's legitimate, because it is part of our system. But it seems like a trap, and Poilievre doesn't seem prepared at all. It seems very, again, I agree with the premise of his response. I just found his response weak. Here's Poilievre and Rosemary Barton.
You've now lost 2 MPs to the Liberal Party. Both have pointed to your leadership as issues. Michael Maw saying that he was more interested in unity than division. Is this a problem of your leadership at this point?
No, it's a problem of Mark Carney's leadership, that after Canadians clearly rejected a costly Liberal majority, because they knew it would mean higher grocery prices and higher food costs. He is trying to manipulate his way through backroom deals to get that majority.
He's allowed to do this, though, right? Floor crossing is allowed. You've benefited from it.
But he's trying to take a costly majority that would drive up the cost of living and enrich Liberal elites, of course, but not through democratic means. My message to Mark Carney is that if you want a costly majority government to drive up taxes and deficits, then you have to go to the Canadian people and have them vote for it, not do it by dirty backroom deals.
You've now lost 2 MPs to...
Again, I mostly agree with that, but I think when she's saying he's allowed to do that, he should come back with a better punch. He took too long, and again, it feels weak. Here are people protesting against Michael Maw's floor crossing at his constituency office. Ivano says constituents protesting inside Michael Maw's office. Here we go in Markham.
Michael Maw must resign.
Must resign. I think there was the other day there was a petition and it got to 37,000 votes. And this is it right here. And they called for victory. Wow, look at that. Okay, perfect. They called victory. Do you know why I think they called victory? They don't want a count of how many people want him to resign, because this thing could go over 100,000 easy, right? Like, there's a lot of people. I don't live in the area. I didn't sign this, but I'm sure there are a bunch of people across Canada who are interested in seeing Michael Maw resign because they're diaspora of China and they understand the danger of China having a big influence in Canada, or they understand this seems fishy as heck. So I think they're going to go forward with this and ignore the public outcry, and there's going to be 2 more floor crossers, and they're going to get their majority, and then C9 is going to pass, and we're England. And I hope I'm wrong. Super hope I'm wrong about that. And my only question is, hey, Mr. Poilievre, why did you pass the Liberal budget by hiding Andrew Scheer behind the curtains? Because if you didn't want the Conservatives or the Liberals to have their majority by floor crossing, maybe you had an opportunity to run an election right then. But you didn't. And now you're screwed. So are we. Moose on the Loose says, is it a coincidence that Michael Maw was Chief Information Officer at Life Labs and Anita Anand's husband is a director there? Coincidence, just coincidental, right? Interestinger and interestinger. Very, very odd. And all of this cronyism, all of this insider baseball seems icky. Yes, I don't like it at all, but here we are, and we don't seem to have any recourse whatsoever. All right, we have to talk about 1BC, and so 1BC put out a statement. They've got this 2-page letter on letterhead, right, from their communications officer, I think, press secretary, right, and then Dallas Brody herself is the one putting out her communication here. Dallas Brody says, since I was elected as an MLA and since I became the interim leader of 1BC, my commitment has always been to my constituents, to the party members, and to all British Columbians. My values haven't changed. My vision for BC hasn't changed. My policy positions haven't changed. My team and I worked very hard. I couldn't have done this alone. For months, I've been raising concerns with my then Chief of Staff, Tim Thielman, and interim executive director of the party, Paul Ratchford, about a staffer, Othman McCulfie, New information was brought to my attention a week ago about values Othman Makulfi has expressed publicly, online and offline, that are absolutely incompatible with my personal and 1BC values. This last week, instead of removing Othman from the 1BC caucus team, which I had verbally requested 3 times by that point, somebody, the remanded, asked for copies of this letter, and dated copies of this letter. Tim Thielman decided to terminate a different member of the team for raising issues about Othman. This was a clear attempt to censor all conversation about an employee Tim Thielman and Paul Ratchford were uniquely protective of. After the wrongful termination of the other team member, and in light of new information about Othman's activities that was shared with the executive team, I sent a written demand that OM be removed from any position within my caucus in the party. Tim Thielman and Paul Ratchford deliberately subverted the order to remove Othman by carrying out his termination on caucus side while simultaneously hiring him onto the party side of 1BC. There was clearly more going on than I had previously been aware of. I pulled a thread that seemed to risk unraveling something that Tim Thielman and Paul Ratchford did not want to be touched. Now my team is being told by individuals familiar with the situation that they knew Othman and Paul Ratchford were in contact with the BC Conservatives executive team without our knowledge to pass information and to make deals. To call this unethical would be an understatement, and the exact reason many people give up on politics. And the type of behavior I got into politics to oppose. I understand that many people are worried, frustrated, and disappointed. I want to assure you that my values, my visions, and policies are unchanged, and I am as committed as ever to upholding them, to fighting for excellence and the prosperity of British Columbia. So there you go. Interesting. I still have issues with Wyatt Claypool. I still have issues with the accusations of the server breach, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But it seems like there's more going on here than meets the eye. And the letter from 1BC is weird. Doesn't seem above board at all, like really at all. So it's really, really strange. Amy says, this is a public and embarrassing game of he said, she said that will only serve the NDP in British Columbia. I'm so sick of BC politics right now. Christmas wish, a single, unified, functioning, and real Conservative party. I don't think 1BC would be anything other than a provincial PPC. But now, I didn't think 1BC would be anything other than a provincial PPC, but now it's clear that it will be nothing other than a zany footnote in BC history. I think that's pretty true, actually, now. It looks like the entire party is imploded. And yeah, here's the letter from 1BC. And this strikes the wrong note, in my opinion. But there are still questions that I have concerns about. As I've said, the breach of the data, all of that stuff, those questions are up in the air, and the answers to those questions matter a lot. Anyway, 1BC says, on Saturday, December 13th, the 1BC Board of Directors ratified a special resolution removing Dallas Brody as leader of 1BC. Tara Armstrong, House Leader of 1BC and MLA for Kelowna Lake Country Coldstream, said, I have lost confidence in the leadership of Dallas Brody. MLA Armstrong intends to inform the Speaker of the House that she is no longer caucusing with MLA Dallas Brody in the BC legislature. Armstrong's loss of confidence comes in light of Brody's increasing instability, paranoia, erratic behavior, and abusive contact. Ms. Brody had frequently yelled at employees, used abusive language, and severed communications with senior staff and caucus for extended periods of time. This erratic behavior culminated in Ms. Brody terminating senior staff members without prior notice or explanation to caucus, and then attempting to access and copy party assets, communication software, and databases without authorization. During the final 2 weeks of the BC legislature's fall session, Ms. Brody had a major outburst towards staff members at 1BC caucus offices. She yelled, used abusive language, and demanded the termination of multiple employees. Senior staff members met with Ms. Brody to address their concerns regarding her pattern of unprofessional and unstable conduct, and requested that she refrain from such behavior in the future. If somebody was having a mental break and was being unstable, I don't know that this is the letter you put out. I don't know. This sounds like a letter done to crucify somebody, not a letter done to say, okay, our leader's having a hard time, so we're going to replace them. This is something trying to take down the leader, not something trying to say, ruh-roh, our leader's lost her mind, right? Like, Yeah. After senior staff and caucus colleagues, MLA Armstrong raised concerns of her behavior, Ms. Brody severed communication and refused to respond to senior staff or MLA Armstrong for nearly a week, despite multiple urgent requests to discuss pressing matters. Ms. Brody, as leader, has refused to return communications to senior members of her team for extended periods of time on multiple occasions before these events. So that's not out of character for her. On the morning of Friday, December 12th, after multiple days of refusing to respond to an urgent request for discussion from MLA Armstrong, Ms. Brody unilaterally terminated 1BC Chair, Chief of Staff Tim Thielman, and Director of Strategic Operations Paul Ratchford from their positions within 1BC caucus. On Tuesday, December 9, and just after midnight on Friday, December 12, agents instructed by Ms. Brody attempted to improperly access party assets, including party passwords, communication software and databases. The board has taken steps to protect membership and other sensitive data and has commenced an external investigation into the matter. I think that means they called the police. All data is safely in the possession of the board of directors and has not been copied or accessed anywhere else. Recent events have left me without confidence in the leadership of Dallas Brody. We thank her for her contributions to British Columbia and wish her well, says Tara Armstrong. And that's the end of that. So yikes, 1BC is having a difficult time, and it doesn't look like there's an easy correction coming for that, to me. Anyway, here is resist. This is communist. I think this is supposed to go after the false flag, but I'll talk about this anyway. Resist CBDC says, just coincidentally, all the world leaders that all meet up at Davos all made the exact same errors: open borders, COVID, vax mandates, digital ID, central bank digital currency, green energy, trans, all at the exact same time, all in the exact same direction, just coincidentally. Isn't that weird? Isn't that super strange how that just happened all by itself, organically, all at the same time? Huh. Wild, right? No. And Michael says, Chinese criminal networks are deeply involved in drug dealing in the Americas. Chinese money laundering networks are the primary choice of Mexican drug cartels. The CCP is always connected to crime in China, making this a national security issue. Yeah, this is how Chinese criminal networks fuel illicit markets across the Americas. The Chinese and the Mexican cartels are using Canada as a staging ground for access to the United States through our open border, or porous border anyway. And that's a problem for the United States, and Canada is going to suffer for our leaders' lack of action on that, unfortunately. I wish I was wrong about that. We're going to do our grab bag of governance. Maybe I'll do trade first. I'll do trade, and then I'll kill the stream, and then we'll do grab bag of governance and all the rest. Wealth Moose says, why potash matters. This is trade, and why tariffs would backfire. The U.S. imports 85% of its potash, most from Canada. Domestic supply is less than 10% of demand. But I think that they could increase their domestic supply. They don't have it because it's not incentivized, and it's probably because it's not incentivized. There's probably better crops, right? If you're looking at your farm as a business and you're like, there's 5 crops we could do. Do you want to do potash? Like, is potash a thing you can do? It's probably not very high on the list. And so if it's not incentivized, then they don't do it. They get it from somewhere else. And so they could increase it if they incentivized it, if that makes sense. But they've got access in Canada. Anyway, domestic supply is less than 10% of demand. Potash is fertilizer yields and food prices. Higher potash costs hit farmers first and then families at the checkout. Tariffs don't create supply overnight. They raise costs immediately. This isn't leverage. It's self-inflicted inflation. So yeah, we'll see if Trump actually does this. I think that, or if it just starts to reshape the potash market to a competitive one where the prices come down or something like that. I'm not even sure if that's plausible, but maybe. But in my opinion, more potash, more access to potash is better. That means more food, more yields, less starving, right? More chocolate cereal. Martin says, we do memorandums of understanding. They do pipelines. Vancouver Island guy says, while Canada debates, the U.S. House passes a bill to fast track natural gas pipeline for permitting. Shucks, right? We could have had some customers. Financial Juice says, at least 4 super tankers that were set to pick up oil cargoes in Venezuela have made U-turns after U.S. seizure of a cargo ship. So that's interesting. The financial pressure of saying, if you pick up Venezuelan oil and then, pretend it's your oil, we're going to F with you, has been a deterrent, and that's going to put pressure on the Maduro regime, and that's all on Trump. So that's interesting. And so if you want the